The topic of today is what can Buddhists do? Humanitarian voices for Myanmar, which is this is the topic for today. First of all, I would like to introduce about it. I would like to introduce about the concept of socially engaged Buddhism. I bringing the words from Mr. Sulak Sivalaksa, which is he have written in the book Seeds of Peace in 1992. Actually, this book also has been translated into Japanese. He said, Buddhism as a practice in most Asian countries today serves mainly to legitimize dictatorial regimes, which is very relevant today in Myanmar, and multinational corporations. If we Buddhists want to redirect our energy toward enlightenment and universal love, we should begin by spelling Buddhism with a small b. Buddhism with a small b means concentrating on the message of the Buddha and paying less attention to the myth, culture, and ceremony, which is in many countries. Our Buddhist monks and nuns, they are very much focused on ceremony only. Then from that concept, he has developed, established the International Network of Engaged Buddhists called INEB, which is emphasized on the grassroots Dharma activism around the world come together, that established in 1989. Engaged Buddhism entails both inner and outer works. We must change the world. We must change ourselves. And we must change ourselves in order to change the world. Awareness and compassionate action reinforce each other. INEB brings together Buddhist-based organizations around the world to share resources and to support each other's healing work in the world. The network also links activists, spiritual leaders, and the academics in area of common concern. INEB is rooted in the treasure of personal relationship, Kalyana Mitra, that bears the original spirit of Sangha in a contemporary multicultural context. INEB participants work in a decentralized manner, while the Secretariat in Thailand maintain a flow of information, support, and cohesion with programs and joint activities that build participants' capacities. The vision aims and objective to serve as a network of information, resources, and people to engage Buddhist groups, to identify and address structural sufferings facing our communities, society, and the world, to articulate the perspective of socially engaged Buddhism regarding these sufferings and train Buddhist activists to cooperate with activists from other spiritual traditions and social change organizations. There are key areas of concern and that we engage on human rights and social justice, peace and reconciliation, environmental, eco-temple, and climate change, gender and women, Buddhist chaplaincy, and holistic healthcare, alternative education, alternative development and economics, reform and revival of Buddhist institutions, youth and spiritual leadership development, child protection, culture and arts, interreligious dialogues and collaboration. We also can summarize it into this mandala that we are interconnectedness and based on the mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. And we have been engaged, outreach to through the transformative learning on the social justice, ecology, economy, and cultural inclusivity and diversities. That's the forming up of the engaged Buddhists that coming together from around the world. Now I would like to present, focus on Burma or Myanmar, one of the most beautiful countries. I would like to present this about the critical historical events as on the timeline. As you see, the British Burma from 1885 until 1948. That period is under control of British. 1948 until 1962 is the independent period. 1962 to 2011 is a military rule, which is quite long, about 50 years. But in that period, in 1988, there's a student uprising in Myanmar. And also 1990 is a NLD win election. And then after that, Aung San Suu Kyi has been house arrest. 2007, Saffron Revolution, that the monk came and lead, revolution. 2008, there's a constitution. And then they have 2010 election and approved in 2011, SPDC win election. And 5 years after 2015, NLD win election. And now come back to military rule. How we engage? We have, from 1996, our organization has been engaged through the grassroots leaders to strengthen the leadership, as well as for them to be able to form small organization, the civil society organization in Myanmar. From 1996 until now, we have been trained over 1,000 people. In the beginning of our work, we start with engage with the Baptist group in Myanmar. And then later on, we engage with the Catholic group, with the Anglican Church, with the Buddhists, with the Muslim community in Myanmar, in different parts of the countries. And with that, we have formed the alumni, and we have the network throughout the countries. Then 2007, with the Saffron Revolution, we also help to back up the Saffron Revolution, and also we help some of the monks who has been exiled to Thailand, and also some to other countries that also we still communicate with some of them. Then come to February to 2021, this year, that the coup took place on the 1st of February. And as you see some of these photos, people come out to demand, to protest the military regime that's coming up. You can see that they come from different religious background, ethnic background in the country, including the indigenous, the Nat, even the Rohingya, in the camp. Also, women's and LGBT group, and they are very active, in the front line. Also, bringing a lot of cultural, aspect into the protest. What until now is about 6 months. Just passed about 2 days ago. Right now, Burma is confronting both the coup and the COVID. After 6 months, about 1,000 people has been killed by the junta. Over 6,000 people arrested since the coup took place. Over 5,000 currently detained sentences. 6,000 dead by the COVID-19. About 2,000 people invading arrest warrant. 1.2 million displaced become the IDP refugees. 6.2 million live without food. Half of the population get into the extreme poverty. This is the result 6 months after the coup. Why we have to be engaged with this situation? As you know, Myanmar, Thailand military, they are brotherhood. They are very close. In our history, this is the time that they are very close to each other, more than the other time. They also is learning from each other how to control the people and how to continue their power. For Myanmar, right now you can see that between the UN and ASEAN, they're throwing Burma as like the ball. They're not take any responsibility deeply. With my analysis, I see that there could be 4 scenarios that could be possible for Myanmar. The first one is China and North Korea model, that they're going to be a totally control on the media, on the life of the people, and so on and so forth, similar to China and North Korea. Or it could turn into Indonesia or South Korea model, that when the people win, can kick out the military, and they are in the right place, and then the democratic system can run it, which is you can see now in South Korea and Indonesia after many years military control. Or thirdly, it can be similar to Syria or Cambodia in 80s, that Burma become battlefield of superpower with the geopolitics. You can see that China and Russia is one side. Another side is the US and the Western country. That another side. And Burma will be become the battle. Fourth is guerrilla warfare, which is right now situation in Burma is become like that. Small group of fightings in urban, in the rural, in the forest. That's still continuing right now. And actually, our work also try to connecting the people to people. Some of you may heard about the Multi Alliance that is connecting, the several countries, as show the map here, and also the group. Actually, last year before the coup, in around this time in August, I myself organizing several meetings through the Zoom of the young activists in Myanmar and the young activists in Thailand, as well as some of the democratic scholars in Thailand as well, that to sharing experience from each other. Then I want to focus on the needs of the internally displaced person and refugee. Right now at the border, more than 10,000 current IDPs, refugees along the Thai-Burma border. And number is increasing to 65 to 70,000 people. 80% are children and women. And some of them also the pregnant women, babies, elderly, and injured. There is a complex power relations along the border. The Thai authorities do not have capacity to support humanitarian assistance. People have moved back and forth across the border since March 27 until now. Spreading COVID-19 in Thailand and Myanmar affect cross-border activities. What are the needs? They need food, they need clean water, shelter, healthcare, sanitation and hygiene, paralegal, psychosocial help, advocacy, media and campaigns to support. The scope that we're working on is on the, in the past 5 months, 6 months, we are very much focused on the public advocacy on democracy in Thailand and Myanmar. The media campaigns to promote democracy and against dictatorship in both countries. Emergency response to protect activists in Myanmar and border. Network coordination and forming alliance. Our work on the emergency aid, advocacy, education, and media campaigns and networking is in addition to strengthening cross-border movements between the two countries. Approximately, directly, we have reached about 10,000 people, and indirectly, 145,000 people that we has been respond for the emergency in the past 5-6 months. The Humanitarian Aid Support, we're supporting the digital security of Burmese pro-democracy activists. In the beginning with the SIM card and so on. Awarding small grants to organizations responding inside Myanmar to support persons involved with the CDM and internally displaced persons with food, shelter, medical supply and care, and other emergency needs. Paralegal support, we supporting the personal security of Burmese pro-democracy activists by coordinating with Thai human rights and immigration lawyers, refugees, asylum seekers, and migrant rights workers in Thailand to support them. Networking and public advocacy, conducting campaigns against events in Myanmar through networking, forming alliance, and logistical support. Joint political education, workshop and training, both online and in person for Thai and Burmese university students, migrant workers, civil society activists, academics, and journalists. Topic cover nonviolence principles, civil disobedience, and the fundamental of building a democratic society. And you can see the picture that we have Zoom meeting with Dr. Sasa from NUG. Media campaigns to promote democracy against dictatorship, increasing public understanding about the impact of military dictatorship on bilateral Thai-Myanmar relationships. Supporting citizen journalists in Myanmar to boost their writing and documentation skills and get their story out to Thai, regional, and international media outlets. In addition to conducting social media campaigns, we also supporting monks and nuns for democracy in Myanmar. Number of monks and nuns, they come out to protest and still protest until now. A total 61 persons received assistance from Yangon and Mandalay regions. The humanitarian support to the monks and nuns to provide food, transportation, medical costs, and medicine, legal consult, clothing, logistics with car rental, phone calls, internet support in prisons. Some of the monks also was arrested in prison, and relocation costs to the move to the secure location away from monasteries. Some of the monks was asked to leave the monastery, that some of the senior monks is support to the military. Then the recommendations, which is I bring from the current peace support network, I think that is quite relevant. The recommendation is to the Thai government to give protection and shelter to refugees fleeing from Burma army attack and persecution, to allow humanitarian aid agencies to access and assist these refugees, to allow humanitarian aid to be delivered cross-border to conflict-affected ethnic communities. The recommendation to international community and donors to provide adequate humanitarian aid to existing and newly arrived refugees in Thailand, to provide humanitarian and development aid cross-border to conflict-affected communities in Burma through ethnic social service department and CSO, civil society organization, to immediately suspend all development aid to the military regime and review all humanitarian aid programs to ensure they do not legitimize or subsidize the military. To end all support for the failed NCA peace process and terminate the Joint Peace Fund. To foreign government not to give diplomatic recognition to illegitimate coup regime, not to sell arms to the regime, and to end any defense cooperation, to impose economic sanctions on the military regime, including targeted sanctions on military businesses, and suspend all investment, especially from Japan, also can do this a lot, especially in large-scale infrastructure and resource extraction project, until there is lasting peace and power in devolved under the new federal constitution, giving local community and right to decide on their own development. Last but not least, I would like to end my presentation with this poem, which is the poet Detti. He passed away during the protests recently. He said, "They shoot in the head, but they don't know the revolution is in the heart." I think this is the relevant and significant words. Thank you so much.